Indirect question is one of three kinds of indirect discourse, or reported speech. Indirect discourse reports what someone else said. It may use the exact words that were spoken, or it might summarize or paraphrase what was said. For example, you might see the sentence, "Marcus asked where his father was," in indirect discourse. This is an example of an indirect question in English, and it may not have been exactly what Marcus said. Marcus's exact words are recorded in direct discourse. There will be quotation marks for direct discourse. For example, Marcus asked, quote, "Where is my father?" End quote. Or Marcus asked, quote, "I have been looking throughout the house to find Dad, and I have not found him anywhere. I checked the kitchen, his bedroom, his office, and the dining room, but I cannot find him anywhere. Do you know where he is?" Notice what is different about the indirect question. It may or may not use the exact words. The words are adjusted because of who is speaking, and there are no quotation marks, so the indirect question is a subordinate clause. So, how do we recognize indirect questions in Latin? Just like in English, indirect questions have a subordinate clause that is triggered by the verb in the main independent clause. This can be a verb of asking like rogo rogare or quaereo quaerere, but it can also be another head verb. Remember that many teachers refer to any verb of saying, asking, telling, thinking, hearing, or sensing as head verbs because they are now all understood to happen with our heads. At the beginning of the subordinate clause, there is an interrogative adverb, like ubi, quam, quando, cur, unde, utrum, an, or quomodo, an interrogative adjective, qui, quae, quod, or an interrogative pronoun, quisquid. Finally, the verb in the indirect question is subjunctive. Let's look back at our English example. Marcus asked where his father was. Notice how the main verb is an asking verb. In Latin, it would be Marcus rogavit. Then we need an interrogative adverb, adjective, or noun. For where, we can use ubi. For his father, remember that the antecedent of his is Marcus, so we should use a reflexive pronoun, or more properly the reflexive possessive adjective suis a His father also goes in the nominative case because it is the subject of our dependent clause, so suis pater. Finally, the verb was should be subjunctive. Following the sequence of tenses, since the main verb is perfect, we are in the secondary sequence. Since Marcus is asking where his father is at the time of his speech, the subordinate verb would be in the imperfect subjunctive case and mood, so esset. Altogether, Marcus rogavit ubi suis pater esset. Let's look at another example. Marcus Antonius meditatus est, cur Caesar octavium heredum fecessit. We've recognized this as an indirect statement because of the thinking verb, meditatus est, the interrogative adverb cur, and the subjunctive fecessit. The translation of the sentence is pretty straightforward because the Latin indirect question is similar to the English indirect question. The sentence should be translated into a nice indirect question like, Marcus Antonius thought about why Caesar made Octavius his heir. So here's a final example for you to identify and translate. Gaius Julius Caesar divi filius quaesivit utrum militibus Marci Antonii uteret. How do we know this is an indirect question? We know because of the question verb quaesivit, the interrogative adverb utrum, and the imperfect subjunctive verb uteret. So how do we translate this sentence? Gaius Julius Caesar, the son of a god, asked if he could use Marcus Antonius's troops. You might know these people by different names and could better understand the sentence as Octavian asked if he could use Mark Antony's troops.